Thank you so much. How are you?
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Too. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for attending. I know this is a rough one. We're coming out of lunch, and so everybody's just like, oh my God, what are we going to talk about, right? But thanks for all of you who are actually here. I'd like to invite up Bill Weaver. Bill is in the prefab space. So first of all, let me introduce myself. So my name is D. Wilmore. I'm a real estate broker, 27 years in the business. I'm with a company called Radius Agent, which is really about agent forward, agent first. It's all about coaching, developing, growing an agent and their brand. Can you hear me okay? Thanks. All about growing their brand. So that's a little bit about me. I've been coaching real estate professionals for about 20 years. I teach real estate, have witnessed lots of changes in the real estate industry, as have all of you. What we're talking about today and some of the changes that are endemic to our business, both in construction and in real estate, is the prefab movement. That's been a several-year trend, but it's taken on more and more steam. We're looking at different products of prefab. Certainly most of you are in markets or have experienced markets that are saturated with real estate professionals and buyers and no inventory. So when we start to talk about the prefab space, what does that mean? What we're going to discuss today, and Bill, welcome. Oh, you got a mic, there we go. Tell us a little bit about you. This is Bill Weaver. Bill, tell us a little bit about you.
Are you going to have Simon come up also?
Am I going to what?
Have Simon come up also?
Yeah, where is Simon? Simon, oh, I'm so sorry. Did not see you. And we also have Simon Polito. Simon, my bad. Hit me when you get up here. I'm so sorry. It's the light. I couldn't see. I was blinded.
It's okay. It's okay.
Good to see you. How's everything? Good. Good.
Very well, thank you.
Please. I'm going to go ahead and join you guys in a seat.
Okay.
So, Bill, tell us a little bit about you. What's your business model? How'd you come to be here today?
Well, I came here, fortunately, I was invited to this. They ran through my LinkedIn page, and I am actually in the design, build, multi-trade construction business. I work for a soon-to-be billion-dollar company in the St. Pete area of Florida, and we actually do work in 27 states. We do a lot of high-rise residential, garden-style residential. It's mostly residential. We do a few other types of construction also, but mostly residential. And I've been in the industry 36 years. I just love what I do.
Short-termer, huh?
Yeah, short-termer. Yes, absolutely. And I just, we've got a great bunch of executives that work for us, and we were talking earlier about women in construction, and half of the people that are on the executive board and half of the project managers probably now for our firm, which is 1,200 people, are women.
Yeah.
So it's a great opportunity for us to branch out and become diversified, no doubt.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Simon, how are you?
I'm great.
Happy Friday, my friend.
Happy Friday.
Tell us, yeah, exactly.
We made it, guys. We lasted a week in Vegas.
No doubt. Tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, so born and bred Sydney, Australia, to both immigrant parents. My dad was born in Italy, my mum was born in Lebanon. Yeah, so it was pretty cool growing up with all the different cultures. I thought it was normal. Apparently, it wasn't that normal. You know, we had a farm. We were farmers, so we grew up on a farm right in the middle of the city.
Yeah, right.
You know, school excursions were to my grandfather's house to play with the goats.
There you go.
So, again, I thought that was normal growing up, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
My dad was a civil engineer, and I grew up my whole life on building sites. I loved building. That's actually one of the reasons that really attracted me to this.
Okay.
With the combination of real estate and the construction industry. It's like me. That's me.
Right.
that's me.
Right.
Right. Because you can't sell something that's not built.
Right.
Well, you can, but it's not the same effect. So my dad, being a civil engineer, I used to go with him on job sites every school holiday break, weekends. I always want to be with my dad at work.
Yeah.
I loved it, but I wasn't a scholar. I didn't finish school. I did not finish high school, and I didn't know what to do with my life. You know, I didn't want to be working in a grocery store, and I didn't want to be a mechanic. I wanted to I like to dress nicely.
Right.
You might have noticed.
Right.
I like to dress nicely. I like to,
nails,
yeah, right.
Yeah.
My dad used to keep your hands clean and your back straight. I said, I'll be a carpenter, Dad. He said, no. So I'll be an architect. He goes, you want to be an architect? You didn't even finish school.
Yeah.
No, you can't even get into college. So I thought, what's an industry that would give me the best of all worlds? And that was real estate.
Yeah.
You dress nicely. You're in and out. You meet people. I did a chef's degree because I like to cook food, because I like to eat good food, and I was like, real estate's like hospitality. So I did that in Sydney, Australia for 14 years. And when I met my wife over in San Diego, I convinced her to move to Sydney. She lived with us over there for 5 years. When she was pregnant with our first child, we decided we wanted to move to the United States to give our children a better future. And I've said this in multiple rooms over the course of the last 3 days. This country is so much the land of opportunity still to this day.
Very true. 100% agree with you.
It's just if you don't look for the opportunities, you'll never find them.
That's right.
So I came out, literally packed up my whole family, went on a boat, not a boat, a plane, and we moved across the world. I didn't know anybody.
Right.
You know, here we are.
How long have you been here now?
Almost 7 years.
Okay, yeah. Big leap of faith.
3 weeks ago, I was in Cabo speaking to 2,000 people. I'm traveling to Australia next month to speak to another 1,000 people. The opportunities that are coming from everyone I'm meeting at conferences like this, whether they're a large room or a small room, it doesn't matter. It's the people inside of it.
That's right.
And the stories they've got to tell.
That's right.
And being relatable. And just having fun. There's no ego here.
Yeah.
Right?
That's always it.
Don't be ego.
I like you, Simon. I am a college dropout, and I'm in the engineering world. You work your way from the bottom up.
Yeah.
You learn what you need to know. You become a people person. You communicate well. A lot of problems with the engineers that we have today is their communication skills. Actually, their lack of communication skills.
What communication? There's just no communication.
So that's the biggest.
It's funny, I saw that growing up, and you're definitely right. The way the trend is going with the construction industry with females, my whole life growing up with my dad, I never saw a female on the site.
Right. Me either.
Now,
Well,
I'm dealing with females every day.
That all speaks to change. So
I love that.
When we talk about where real estate and construction is, and certainly there's been lots of change, both from personnel to building styles and types. And now where we sit, which is, we talk a lot about like ADUs, we talk a lot about prefabs. We see a lot of prefabs, certainly in larger cities. With the housing crisis, some of you may be familiar with tiny homes, things like that. But, let's talk a little bit about prefab. So, Bill, you and I were talking a little bit about not just the structure itself, but some of the systems that go in and the convenience. And if you think about a prefab versus traditional construction, what's the chasm, and why would you choose a prefab over traditional construction?
Actually, and is the quality the same?
And the quality, absolutely, good question.
Believe it or not, the quality is actually better. We have found with Power Design, the company that I work for, that we pre-manufacture all of the unit panels, the electrical panels. All of these electrical panels are built. We have a 100,000 square foot manufacturing facility where we do lighting. We use it as a distribution center for lighting and also as a prefab for all of our panels. So every unit panel, not every one now, but soon to be every one, they've already got the lengths of the feeders to all the devices cut out, pre-cut. All the branch circuits are pre-cut. They come in, they install this panel board in the unit. It's plug and play.
What's the average time for, let's say, 1,000 square foot prefab to go up?
From the electrical standpoint?
Let's talk about total, including electrical, including plumbing. Obviously, they're all built off-site. Have you had an opportunity working with prefabs?
I haven't personally. I've seen one happen. I've seen from afar.
Yeah.
I just haven't had the pleasure of being involved in that. But I just finished them. I mean, I just personally built a massive home, which I just sold, which was
What were your pain points building that massive?
Took 7 years.
Yeah.
We went $5 million over budget.
Painful.
We had Coastal Commission and the city to deal with.
Yeah.
I mean, I built a 7-story mansion into rock on Mount Soledad in La Jolla, San Diego.
I was going to say you must have down San Diego.
And we spent $9.5 million, and I just sold it for 7.25.
Yeah.
But I mean, amazing home. But we custom everything. Everything was custom. Everything had to be custom. There was $400,000worth of glass in the house.
Right.
So I took off away from your question.
No,
but,
it kind of ties in because if you look at the cost of a custom built home, and staggering, right?
And even now, that would be more now.
Right.
That was before COVID.
Right.
That we did that.
Yeah.
Now it would have cost $15 million because of labor, lumber, and everything else included.
Right. And with the supply chain, all of that going on, so a prefab, again, lighting systems already built and plumbing's already integrated. A lot of prefabs use standard surfaces or common surfaces to where it makes it easy, and they can go up in a day.
Well, you know, from our standpoint, we do the electrical distribution system prefab. We're not to the point where we do the plumbing prefab or the mechanical HVAC systems prefab. The walls are all built. It still takes some time to do the unit, but we found from our standpoint as a design build contractor that pre-doing the electrical and shipping it to the job site, we save 20 to 25% in labor.
Yeah.
Wow.
By
Wow.
not having to do it on the site and wire everything at the site. We do it all, ship it to
Really?
the job site. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
All good play.
Yeah. So, you know, because we're having a panel discussion, right? I mean, there's a lot we could kind of talk back. What are some questions you guys have? Who out here has had experience in the prefab world? Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
It's on.
Yeah,
It's not working.
there are certain sites have the site condition that cannot bring in like a heavy equipment to install the prefabricated houses or containers. I'm not exactly sure how your houses get delivered on site. So how you going to solve that problem if you cannot have a crane on site to install it?
That right now, from our standpoint, the prefabrication we do is of the electrical. We do a lot of high-rise construction. We do garden style where it's, you know, 6 stories or less. We do mid-rises also, but a lot of high-rises. And what we do is we go in and just take the electrical distribution system within the units. Typically there's between 200 and 500 units in a building. So each one of those electrical panels, we take the plans, we scale them off, we cut all the wires to the right lengths, we pre-manufacture that, we pre-manufacture the panel boards with all the breakers in it, we ship it to the job site, and boom. It's so much easier for us and so much less labor and less mistakes.
Yeah.
Everything's already pre-cut, so, and we're getting to the point where we're starting to do that mechanical also.
You had a question in the back.
Question.
Go ahead.
What's all this we hear about 3D printers?
3D printing houses.
Thank you. What's all this we hear about 3D printers making houses? Do you hear?
Well, you know, 3D printers can pretty much make anything these days, including engines, right? As Simon was talking about, he built a custom home, ground up, right? Sticks and lumber, all that. The cost to build, and particularly now, you know, where we're really stuck, where the industry's really bottlenecked is the material. Materials super expensive at this point in time right now. We're always looking at cost of unit, right? That cost per square foot to put up something. 3D is instantaneous, just like when he was talking about the lighting. When Bill was talking about the lighting, that's something that can be done internally, shipped out to the job site. You've got less labor, you've got less cost of material, and a quicker turnaround time for the build.
Yeah, with the lighting, it's basically plug and play. I mean, you get pre-manufactured whips. You install the light fixture, you take these whips and you plug them in from light to light rather than having to do wire and conduit. We really don't do anything in the 3D printer realm because of the number of units that we do and the size of the jobs that we do. But I don't know, is that something for residential construction?
You know, so I'm in the Bay Area. You know, there are lots of innovative inventions that happen. You know, people are experimenting, trying out a lot of different things. There is a 3D built home on the peninsula. I don't know how habitable it is, so I won't go as far as to say that. But, you know, honestly, 3D, you can build anything. You can build anything. So time will tell as to its cost effectiveness, if it's a viable product for the future, but certainly there are companies that build ADUs, accessible dwelling units, because there is so little inventory for most markets. And because there's so little inventory, those ADUs actually give that additional footprint or that additional property that's available to someone. So, you know, 3D may be the way to go. You know, that might be something in the very near term that we start to see more and more of. Other questions?
So Simon, when are they going to perfect smell-o-vision?
Perfect a what?
Smell-o-vision.
Smell-o-vision.
I don't know how to answer that question.
Hopefully no time soon.
No, yeah, I'm not in a rush for it right now. There's a lot of shit on television.
Right? That's, yeah.
Sorry for swearing. Not really. I'm Australian. It's part of my vocabulary.
Hey, we are too. We speak fluently. Question?
Actually, curious on the 3D printer. I've never seen a physical home built with a 3D printer. Maybe you have.
Yeah.
I'm actually curious. Like, what's the material they're using?
So it's kind of a polymer. There's an ADU builder in San Mateo, California, that they use this type of polymer substance for everything. So if you've ever seen a 3D object, it's this type of polymer that gets kind of melted and shaped from an AutoCAD into whatever you want. And they have massive 3D printers, and they've got tiny little home 3D printers, and literally you can build anything with a 3D printer. So all of the components, all of the working mechanicals can be built in a 3D surface, minus obviously something like electrical or things like that. But yeah, I mean, just the
Good
whole
question, though.
thing.
Yeah, I'm actually curious to see where that goes, because I just seen before, I just whispered over to you, yeah, I saw it at the start, and then it just sort of faded in the background. It sort of hasn't been a topic of discussion for a while, from my experience.
Right. No, I mean, it's, you know, when you talk about anything that's pre-built, it's a convenience factor that I think is really what people are looking at on so many levels. I mean, just the cost per square. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. See,
I was wondering what you were doing. I was going to go, that's a really...
I'm going to try to be rude. yeah. So the mics here, especially because we're live streaming as well.
Gotcha.
So we've been hearing you have to say, what you're saying is important.
Yep.
Question?
My question was, we touched on it a little bit during lunch, but perhaps you can expand upon it. We've investigated SIPs and panelized systems and different things within our area, but the challenge is getting the local municipalities to adopt the prefabricated modular system within the codes, because they have specialized codes. How do you address the overwhelming variety of codes that are across the country?
Well, from our standpoint, where we do work in 27 states. Every one of those states has had no problem with us coming in, building the panels in our warehouse, manufacturing those panels, bringing them out to the job site, and just wiring them back to devices, and the devices wire back to the panels, and pretty much plug and play. It saves us a lot of labor. It also saves us mistakes. It's pretty much, I'd like to say it's foolproof, but it takes a lot of time to be able to build all those plans and detail those plans to the exact linear footage of your branch circuits, which go from a receptacle in a wall or a light in the ceiling back to the panel at its location. So you've got to be very precise when you do the detailed drawings of how this is going to be built and pre-manufactured. The days of AutoCAD are pretty much gone. I'm old school, I'm like Ed. We were laughing last night about drawing with a T-square and a straight edge on a table with rectangles. I mean, those days are gone. We went to AutoCAD. Now we've gone from AutoCAD to Revit, and everything's built in 3D in Revit and in BIM, which is Building Information Management. It's a tool where you can overlay all the systems on top of each other to resolve any conflicts before you go out in the field and build it. There's a lot of time that's spent overlaying these by the contractors at the job site, by us as the engineers in the office before we issue the plans. So it really makes everything a lot easier, and it makes it a little more foolproof, but it also requires time, and it requires a lot of manpower to be able to assemble these things so that you don't have any clashes. I mean, in the old days, we used to get a light table, and we'd put one mechanical drawing over an electrical drawing and over another drawing, and you'd be able to see through all these and see where you had the conflicts. You don't have to do that anymore. It's all done by, computers, which makes it much more effective. And as far as updating backgrounds and that kind of stuff, it's so much easier. Boom, they give us a revised background, we plug it in, and you're good to go.
You'd also have less user error as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, yes and no.
Depending on how you're inputting information into the computer.
People have a tendency to take shortcuts sometimes, and those shortcuts can really cause some pain down the road. So you've got to make sure you you do things exactly the same, and it's hard when you have 1,200 people in the company and 120 people in the engineering department, and you're getting everybody to do the same thing on all the jobs. Quality control is, everybody likes to do things a little differently. They've got their own little way to do it, so.
Yeah, but I think to Simon's point, I mean, that's a great point, Simon, is literally we're taking that user error off the table for the most part. I mean, as we're looking to evolve, and certainly prefab gives a uniqueness to it where it's not necessarily cookie cutter because it can be bespoke, but it definitely takes that user error off the table because you can see it. You know, someone was talking about 3D modeling. You can see it, any mistakes far before it actually hits production.
Yeah, avoid
So,
massive cost.
right.
Just flip the power on your mic went off. It's,
Flip the switch.
Test.
there you go, yeah.
That's you?
Yeah, can you hear
Yeah,
me?
can you hear me?
Yeah, you got it.
Nope.
Dead battery. It's got a dead battery.
You gave me a dead battery.
I'll switch you. It was all a test.
Thanks. I'm in the matrix right now. Okay. Other questions? I know this is kind of an obscure topic, and literally Bill is the expert out of the three of us up here on this panel, but you know, there's some folks. Go ahead, question. There we go.
So I talked to a prefab builder. I guess that's the term. I get all confused with, and I think people in general kind of get confused between prefab, modular, right? And they kind of mean different things, but the same thing.
Yep.
And I was told stick built will be cheaper. This was a place up in New Hampshire, and their pitch, you know, they're like it's better quality. But say, you know, a scenario where someone builds 10 or 40 houses and they build prefabs. Do you think you could charge a premium to the buyer, and how would you pitch that? And if you can help me out with the better terms to use too.
Let me speak on this because I just, believe it or not, bought a pre-manufactured home. And it's so funny because you go to the facility where they manufacture these homes, and it's basically a double wide trailer. You go there, you pick out your finishes.
Yep.
They take it there, they build it, they ship it in 2 halves. It gets to the job site and it's got 80%, 90% of everything that it needs to have to make it a fully functional house, and then they go in and paint and flooring and that kind of stuff later on down the road. But it's a lot less expensive than standard construction. Maybe, I don't know.
Cost of the land in addition to,
Yeah, well, from my standpoint, I rent the land, so I don't have to.
Yeah.
I don't have to, you know, worry about buying the land. But for me, it was much more affordable. Much more affordable. I sold the house, and everybody's like, "Well, okay, you made a lot of money on your house. Where are you going to go?" Well, fortunately, I had the luxury of going into a 55-plus community and living in a pre-manufactured house. Most people don't have that luxury, so.
I will say, so when you talk about stick-built and the difference between, say, a prefab, because lots of prefabs use different materials, but if you're talking about a pre-manufactured, which in essence is a stick-built, it's just something that's built off-site, not actually on the job site itself, you can build some beautiful custom houses that are pre-manufactured, built in a factory and shipped to the job site itself. Certainly in the Bay Area of California, you see some very gorgeous manufactured homes, large, 4,000 square feet and above, that were manufactured, built in a factory. So, things you're saving on are labor. Some of the intangibles that we don't think about are crime. Vandalism on a job site, things like that. Destruction of materials on a job site, things like that. And so there are some clear advantages, particularly like if space is small and you can't get the type of heavy machinery you may need to facilitate a build. There are definite advantages. These days, just based on supply chain, so to your question, I think that would depend on that timeline of when they said stick-built is more relevant than, say, something off-site, because the cost of lumber is astronomical at this point in time.
The other advantage to pre-manufactured is you don't have a house that you're putting up where you get rainstorms and everything gets all the elements before you have a roof on the building. can get a lot of water in them. So these are pre-manufactured in a warehouse, and they stay there until they're done, and then they take it out in 2 trailers, one half the house on one half the house on the other. They put it together, and you don't have to worry about the elements and water and storms and all that stuff.
And time.
Absolutely.
Because every time, I can't work this week, it's a rain day.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You heard that before on a construction site.
Yeah, brilliant, yeah.
We're still dealing with supply chain issues with some of the appliances, but be it as it may, not much you can do about that.
Yeah, with about everything.
So those are those wide load trucks that always make me late for work?
Yeah, right.
Got it.
Me again. I live in South Florida. I remember Hurricane Andrew.
Yes.
And now, I've been seeing all these warehouses go up with tilt wall.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Are those safe? I mean, when the next Andrew hits and all that, are we going to be okay?
Very safe. Any of that tilt-up construction, it's solid concrete. I worked in South Florida for 31 years, so I'm very familiar with a lot of that tilt-up construction. We did high-rises also, but I also, in my years before doing high-rises, we did a lot of tilt-up construction. I lived in Coral Springs. There's a big warehouse. Where do you live in South Florida? Miami Beach. Okay, well, if you ever go out on the Sawgrass Expressway, past City Furniture.
Yeah, there's a whole community there of all these warehouses, yes.
And that City Furniture is 750,000 square feet of tilt-up construction, and that building is rock solid. And also, believe it or not, the manufactured houses go through the same wind test that normal construction does. They still do the missile impact test, still goes through the same test that a standard construction house would go through. The only thing is, it's anchored to the ground, but it's not, it's not as solid, and it's not poured on footers like a normal house would be.
Yeah.
Are they testing it off-site or when it's on the actual plot itself?
Yeah, they do it both.
Both. Cool.
They do it in the factory, and then they do it on the site also.
So basically, he should go to the factory at the next hurricane. That's probably the safest place for it.
Absolutely.
So what about those hurricane-proof windows? I mean, if a coconut hits it at 200 miles an hour, are we okay?
Who was the window man? Weren't you the window manufacturer? Yeah. Can you test that?
Go for it, Ed.
All right, hold on. Coconut, 200 miles an hour. How's it going to do?
I don't think they're going to test it with a coconut. It's normally a 2x4.
I haven't seen the test with a coconut, but they send 2x4s by way of an air missile into not just the center of the units that they're testing, but into the corners, locks, and any vulnerable area. And basically, then after they fire this, number one, it can't break. It cracks, but it can't actually break. It can't open. And by the time that's done, they then have to take that window, which is in a sealed box, and expose it to cycle testing of wind pressure, positive and negative, back and forth in hard, quick bursts multiple times, and it still can't fail. So, yeah, 200 miles an hour, coconut, piece of cake.
Okay, and it also, it doesn't crack the window. It cracks it, but it doesn't shatter it. Yeah, it doesn't allow anything to penetrate through it.
It has to be laminated glass, and the laminated glass will crack, but the plastic film in the center of it is such that the glass will just stay where it is, held in by the plastic. So similar kind of glass is security glass, and they use the same technology, a little bit different layers, and same thing in bulletproof. It's the same technology. In security, it's tested by how many minutes it would take somebody like a young Arnold Schwarzenegger with an axe, a torch, and a sledgehammer to get his body more than 50% through the plane of the glass. So this stuff is, it's very, 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 very tough.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Well,
that.
wait there. Now what about your house? Let's talk about the doors and the roof. What do you got going on there?
The roof, back in Hurricane Andrew, they had staples that were really small. I mean, they went through the layer of asphalt and then only maybe a quarter inch into the plywood. When my house was built in the 1950s, the roof is tongue and groove with nails that are like 6 inches and all that. So yeah, they changed the code, but that's the first thing to go is the roof.
You know, somebody mentioned quality in terms of prefab and pre-manufactured. And I submit that certainly because of the way some tract homes are built, I believe you might sometimes see better quality in a pre-manufactured home than you would probably see in a tract-built home. Tract-built home, almost every piece of it, and you builders out there can confirm, is that builder-grade material. In order to get that interim funding, you got to produce so many units and sell so many units before you can move forward. So, you know, yeah, you've got a 1-year fit and finish and a 10-year builder manufactured, but the truth of it is where does the quality truly sit? It looks pretty for about 12 minutes. And then, you know, somebody lives in it and it's like, oh crap, the wall's scuffed and what the hell is this? And, you know, so, you know, in a factory built, you have a better window of time. You've got a different quality of inspection that happens. There's not the same time impetus that, in other words, the workers aren't under the same time pressure to get this product out, even though there is a timeline. So I would submit you probably get a better product many times with a pre-manufactured than you do a tract build.
I'd agree with that.
If you don't mind, to further comment on that, I'm an industrial engineer, which is manufacturing systems, and the thing that happens is a factory manufactured house is a factory. It's like a production line. So you're not exposed to the weather. You're in a controlled environment, and the inspector is in one site and can do his level of inspection right there, as opposed to running around a track that the guy is there, the guy is not there. He says, and so the product is more coming to them than them running around to the product. And anything that can be done in a repeatable process, which is in a factory space or in a factory setting, can be controlled, and therefore the likelihood of higher quality control is astronomically higher.
Absolutely. Yeah,
and that's the way
point.
it is with our panel boards. When we do the electrical construction of them, the quality control is so much better because you don't have that human factor of somebody not doing something right, not installing it right, cutting the feeders too long, cutting them too short, having to re-pull them. We also do smart space installments also. We have a whole...
What's that, smart space installment?
Smart space installment is Bluetooth, Wi-Fi connection, panel boards inside of the units which can monitor the amount of energy you're using for each branch circuit, so you know where your energy is going to. We have a whole division of our company that specializes in that. Not only can you do it with the smart space stuff, but fire alarms. We're getting to the point where we're actually pre-building fire alarm systems. A lot of it, not all of it obviously, but a lot of it pre-manufactured at the same facility where we you know, pre-manufacture the electrical panels. So it really saves us time, cuts the material cost down because there's not wasted material like you have when you actually have guys out in the field, you know, redoing everything and pulling them too short and having to re-pull feeders, and the time is really of the essence. It's all about quality control and it's all about saving time.
So let me ask the panel. So we've talked a lot about, you know, the differences between the two. Is a prefab, is a pre-manufactured the future of real estate and the construction industry? What do you think, Simon?
I mean, I don't know if it's the future. I definitely think it'd be part of it. I don't believe it'll be the only way moving forward. I mean, look, I live in Irvine, California, right? Right in the heart of Cookie Cutter Central,
sure.
right? Every home's the same. I even may even told you guys the other day. I can't remember which room I said it to. I went into the wrong house once when I first moved there. I literally did. Every fourth house looks exactly the same,
Sure.
right? You got model 1, 2, 3, 4, light or dark scheme.
Yep.
Which one is it, right?
Yep.
And if they're not, they're mirrored.
Right.
So I just moved to Irvine from San Diego, and I remember going, So I went for a walk. I wanted to see the area, so I come home. They left the front door open. And there was a
You got
family.
my child.
There was a family just sitting there. And but that was the first thing that I don't like about those track homes.
Yeah.
They're all the same, and the HOAs. Sorry, you guys say
Staggering.
HOA, however you say it. They dictate you can't change the facade. You can't change the fore and fawn out the front. So
That's right.
you're really limited. And like you said exactly, they look good for 12 months. 2 years, 3 years, and then they start to just fade and tarnish drastically. When I first moved to Irvine with my family, my next door neighbour, prior to COVID, paid $1 million for the house. It's probably worth $2 now. Within 1 week, you had plumbers, construction crews, and a tarp over the house. I said, "What happened?" He said, "There was water coming out of my kitchen ceiling." They never waterproofed the membrane of the shower pan.
Wow.
And then he found out that the pipes were never big enough.
Right.
All the things that you can't see as an everyday consumer that they knew they were doing.
Right.
And they weren't building one house;
Yeah.
they're building a whole suburb here. So that little bit of shortening a pipe from 5 inches to 3 inches might save them a couple $1 million.
Right. Completely.
Not only that, pipes not being large enough, they may cut corners when it comes to the size of the pipes being large enough to be able to handle the amount of water that needs to be, distributed throughout that.
And we're in California.
Yeah.
We're on a fault line.
Yeah.
And they're not putting copper; they're putting PVC,
Yeah.
and they're all cracking, and everyone's getting slab leaks. So
That's it.
I don't.
Attention.
I mean, look, the city's going to continue to approve it because those guys have got big money. You go down to Irvine, you got the Irvine company, which pretty much own everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Irvine's
They pull the shots.
That's right.
They tell the city what they're going to do, not the
right.
city approving them. So I don't know how quickly it'll go away, but I'm definitely seeing people getting frustrated with the level
Yeah.
of lack of quality.
Yeah. So, I mean, do we see it trending? And if so, what time frame do we see it converting, right? I mean, you're right. They'll probably always have stick built. Always, at least to some degree. But we've already articulated convenience. We've articulated cost, time, all those things. Is there a possibility, do you see that in the near term, that housing could switch more to manufactured prefab versus stick built?
My thing, I feel, and maybe it's just a California thing, coming from Sydney, Australia, which is like a mini New York, where it's very dense and close by, moving to California, where literally everything's half an hour drive minimum.
Get on the 405, be stuck for 7 hours.
I live half my life on that damn freeway. But they say there's no more land.
Yeah.
There's so much damn land there. But then they have all this open area, and then they put every house right up against each other, so there's nowhere, you can literally touch your neighbor.
No, that's already part of that
And that's
system.
where I'm like,
Yeah.
I feel to your question of when do I think it'll come, I think it'll come when the cities actually finally put their foot down and start adopting a proper system that's going to be more beneficial to the future of their area, as opposed to what's going to go in their pocket at that time.
Gotcha.
Now, I don't know how likely that's going to be to happen, because it's something that is called corruption.
Yeah. Didn't hear it. La, 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 didn't
But
hear it.
at the end of the day, I love living in Irvine for the fact that it's got the best school district for my kids.
Sure.
But I hate living in Irvine for the fact that it's literally you're on top of each other, and I can hear the person 3 doors down having dinner at night.
Yeah. I used to live in Costa Mesa, so
Yeah.
I totally get it.
Had an
Yeah,
officer.
Totally get it, right?
If you travel to the suburbs, you will find a lot of the houses that are in the suburbs are pre-manufactured houses.
Yeah.
A lot of it's not normal stick construction, it's pre-manufactured houses because they have a lot of land and maybe not a lot of money to be able to build a house, so they go with the pre-manufactured houses instead.
They're still putting them on a concrete slab though, right? Yeah.
They're still anchored.
Yeah, they're not raised. Okay, gotcha.
Questions?
Some of them do have to raise when you have a flood line, when you have a floodplain problem.
Gotcha, yeah.
I do think that modular will be, and prefabricated will continue to grow just because of the fact we're losing skilled labor force. So I think the issue more is
point.
labor
That's a
rather
very
than
good
materials.
point.
So my question is, with regard to labor, material shortages and 2x4s and the cost of materials skyrocketing, is your company investigating alternatives like SIPs, structural insulated panel systems, where you're eliminating the 2x4s and creating a sandwich for the structure and creating a more environmental, higher eco rating?
We don't really do any of the architectural stuff. Ours is just the MEP systems. Okay. But you see a lot of creative things. We're actually using flexible metallic conduit instead of PVC, because the price on PVC is just through the roof, and it's tripled over the last 2 or 3 months. And everything we did before, we tried to get as much in the slab as we could, because PVC was cheap. Not anymore. So we're having to continually change and shift our best practices to adapt to what's in the market and how the market pricing is going.
That leads me to a question too. So you're talking about like manufacturing is going to be cheaper and that sort of thing. What about resale value? I know that location and things like that come into play with an answer to that, but I mean, do they decrease in value?
That's a really solid question. So I think there's been a myth over time. So most people think pre-manufactured as a trailer park, right? Oh my God, you live in a trailer park, right? There's that stigma that exists, right? Because it's not traditional. I want that stick built because that's what everybody else has, or that's what my neighbor has, and that's what I'm familiar with as far as permanence. And you know, again, just not true. It depends on area to area for sure, but just not true. Again, in the Bay Area of California, I've seen multi-million-dollar properties that were modular, that were manufactured, that the resale was through the roof. And it's also timing in the market too, right? What I've seen over the last, more specifically 13 months, is normally a manufactured home, depending on material, hovers in the Bay Area around 200,000 or 300,000 normally, and that's for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, around 1,800 square. You're seeing them for 50, you know, and again, part of it is due to inventory and lack of, but absolutely, retail, when there is a demand, you will start to see alternate products move and move successfully. It's an easier entry. Lots of what happens in a manufactured community, depending on what type it is, and particularly if it's like a park setting, or age restrictions, things that you can do. Is there ownership or is there fractal ownership? So you're looking at dynamics that happen in that realm. But you know, absolutely the retail's there. It's like anything. If it's well maintained, if it's in a nice and desirable area, absolutely you should see prices rise. So I think everybody knows historically in a normal market, homes appreciate anywhere between 2 and 5% per annum. Some of our markets, like as I was sharing with somebody at lunch, there's an area where I live that's appreciated almost 58% in 24 months. So it just all depends on where you are. So if you're in the middle of in the middle of somewhere, ouch, in the middle of somewhere else, you know, resale might be difficult, but you know, so that's kind of a, you know, the way to look at it.
Have you found with COVID that there was a rise or a fall in people being interested in manufactured or prefab?
Definite rise.
Yeah,
definite rise. Definite rise.
People want space.
Yeah.
They want space. They want to work from home, so they need to have a separate home office, or at least a place where they can carve out and work from home. We do a lot of, I used to do a lot of travel into the Mid-Atlantic. That's my region, Washington, D.C., Virginia, Delaware, places like that. Now we do it all via Zoom. And it's not uncommon for us to have a husband and a wife, both on the phone, both on a conference call, sitting in the same office 5 feet apart. You hear both conversations at one time. That's just the dynamic of what it is. So people are understanding now that we need a little more space so we can work and have our own dedicated space in the house to work from.
That's where I've seen the rise of the ADU. You know, do you have a lot of ADUs
in San Diego, down south of Orange County, of California? Yeah. They're now allowing you to put up to 3.
It depends on the
size of your lot, obviously.
Still hit the setbacks.
You've got to have the setbacks, and you've got to have the up to 3 now. You can have. They just increased that as of January.
Yeah. Wow. That's big.
Because there's a massive shortage.
Sure.
Yeah, we've spoken about it all week.
Yeah.
There's a shortage.
Yeah.
There's massive demand, lack of supply.
Yeah.
And these ADUs are, they're pushed up in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, they're done.
3 weeks, that's it. Yeah.
Right.
Mom, you're out back. Right.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And the ADUs are sometimes even being used as home offices.
Yeah. Completely.
Right? Oh, you know, we don't want to put a tenant in there, but we're going to have our office on our site still. We've got a backyard, might as well use it.
Yeah.
Which is like what I was speaking about the other day. It's all about space. Everyone wants the space.
Yeah.
And they're paying a premium for it. San Diego is the second quickest growing city in the country right now, behind Phoenix. Although everyone from San Diego's moved to Phoenix. They're just going to move out when they realize what summer's like. But they won't be able to buy back into San Diego because the prices have just gone crazy.
That's like everything Northeast is coming down to Florida. I mean, they're coming down there because, first of all, there's no income tax. And the taxes in the states in the Northeast are just, people are tired of paying them. So they're coming down to Florida, and you know, they don't have the COVID lockdowns that you have in so many other states. And I think my new house, is 1,400 square feet, and I paid $175 for it, so it's at about $120 a square foot compared to new stick construction.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah, coming from where we
That
come
is
from,
insane.
it feels, you know, and again, markets are always different, but, you know, in Irvine, if you're not familiar with Irvine, California, or Orange County is definitely one of the high dollar areas of the state. The Bay Area is definitely the highest dollar of the state. So, I mean, 175 is...
Not anymore. San Diego just got it.
San Diego
is now the most unaffordable city in California, surpassing the Bay Area.
That's crazy.
Based off income.
Yeah.
Because obviously you guys are making a lot more money.
Yeah.
Because you guys, rolling in it.
Yeah, right.
And in San Diego, no one's working.
Seriously.
They're just stoned all day.
Right. So, I mean, when you think about pre-manufactured and prefab, are you guys seeing people buying more raw land or undeveloped land and building off-site, building away from a community?
I'm not saying that because I think the problem is people don't have the money, because you can't get a loan on the raw land. So you got to have the cash, or you got to take a hard money loan, and it's going to cost big bucks.
Yep.
And then you get your time. That's the big determining factor.
No
is
entitlements, right?
You got to get everything passed. You got to get the utilities hooked up. You know, this could be a 1, 2, 3, 4 year project.
Yeah.
And do you have that luxury of having the holding costs up your sleeve?
Right. If you could have done it all over again, the property you built in San Diego, and you had, you know, isolated somewhere to where you literally had to go ground up again, would you do it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I love it.
Okay.
I love it.
Yeah.
I built a one-of-a-kind property that is now a case study at the city of San Diego that will never be allowed to be built again.
Wow. It's incredible.
It's like I said, 7 stories of glass.
Yeah.
And I sold it to a gentleman who will never use it, which breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sold it to
Engineering marvel.
a gentleman in China saw it online, bought it, cash, and he just wants to keep it to save his money.
A lot of wasted air conditioning in that 7 stories of glass.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. So on that point, I would stay there one night a week, every week, just to keep the lights on and move. No one had ever lived in the house. The electricity bill was $2,000 a month,
Insane.
and no one was living there.
Yeah.
But we were going to put solar on,
I was just
because we had a
gonna
flat
ask,
roof,
solar.
and we actually had, so we had to cancel it for the buyer, but we were going to put solar on, which was going to drop it down to $500. And there's so many great solar programs out there right now. They're not as scary as the ones that they used to be.
We're talking about prefab. What about the integrated tiles? Those are great, right? That's a prefab
Love that.
product. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Look, we obviously we put everything custom in that home, but there are ways to do things really inexpensively.
Yeah.
It's about looks, it's about the quality, and it's about what you want.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Whites, beiges, browns,
Yeah.
depending where you are. Everyone says I can't stand Tuscan style. You don't see it in Tuscany, by the way, but you see it in Orange County. It's Tuscan
I was
style.
going to say, you're in Southern California, and
Everything's Tuscan style, Mediterranean Tuscans.
Yeah.
No, but the prices will continue to grow. Everything's going to keep going the way it's going. We're just seeing a lack of supply, and no one's buying land.
Yeah.
Because the only land is really out if you're going inland towards Palm Springs,
That's right.
or Hemet, Victorville.
Yeah.
Middle of nowhere.
Awesome. Other questions?
Who's ready to go to Vegas?
Ready.
I know I have one, and this is probably the most important question you'll hear this entire conference. So if you remember nothing else, please remember this. Simon, where'd you get your socks?
Oh, I can't tell you that. I have a lot of stuff. So I actually have in my team agreement with my office, and I've got a few dozen workers. You're not allowed to come to work for me if you wear plain socks.
Nice.
Life's too short to be boring.
Good deal.
So
Okay, I got fired right away.
Oh, you got color. It's not. I'm saying like black. People just, sorry, not bad. Okay, yeah. Well, there was one, but okay. But no, I'm always about the. I like to accessorize.
Yeah, it became hard to decorate it, right?
And real men wear pink.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for really great information about a very specific part of realty that I don't think a lot of people knew or were actually very confused about. So thank you for your information and your time today.
Love it.
Thank you for the opportunity, guys.
Thanks so
All
much.
right.